We've all used it. Software that crashes for no reason, websites that are painfully slow, apps that just feel wrong. And a lot of times we just kind of shrug and accept it as normal. But in the world of project management, that's not normal. It's a huge failure. So today, we're going to dive deep into project quality management. We're going to explore the tools and, more importantly, the mindset you need to get way beyond just good enough. So let's start with the big question. What actually happens when quality gets pushed to the side? And I'm not talking about a minor inconvenience here. We're talking about a systemic problem with some very real-world consequences. There's this fantastic old joke that just nails the issue perfectly. Bill Gates supposedly once bragged that if General Motors had kept up with tech like the computer industry, we'd all be driving these incredible $25 cars. And the supposed response from GM was, yeah, maybe, but your car would also crash twice a day for no reason, and you'd have to completely restart it every time. It's hilarious because, well, it feels kind of true, doesn't it? But here's the thing. In the real world, it is absolutely not a joke. Poor IT quality means mission-critical systems go down. We're talking about financial platforms that handle billions of dollars, or even medical equipment where actual lives are on the line. When quality is just an afterthought, the costs, both in money and in human terms, can be just staggering. Okay, so we know the stakes are high. But what are we really talking about when we use the word quality? It's not just some vague feeling, right? No, it's a concrete set of measurable standards and processes. So let's break down what that really means. At the very heart of all this is quality control. And listen, this isn't about some final check you do at the very end of the project. No. It's an ongoing thing. It's a process of constantly monitoring and measuring what you're building against the standards you've set. The whole point is to catch problems early and not just fix the one little error, but to fix the root cause in the process that created it. Now, this is one of the most important distinctions in all of project management. On one side, you have conformance to requirements. That means you followed the blueprint exactly. You built the product right. But on the other side, you have fitness for use. And that asks a totally different question. Does this thing actually solve the user's problem? Did we build the right product? Because you can follow the instructions perfectly and build a system that nobody wants or can even use, which, let's be honest, is a total failure from a quality standpoint. So, how do project managers actually pull this off? How do they measure and control quality in a way that isn't just guesswork? Well, they have a specific set of tools, and these tools are all designed to find the real signals in all the noise and hopefully bring a little order to all that potential chaos. Just imagine for a second you're tracking something like system response time. Some days it's a bit faster, some days it's a bit slower. Is that just normal, random variation? Or is there a hidden problem that's brewing under the surface? How can you possibly tell the difference? Well, the answer is something called a control chart. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful tool. You just plot your data over time, and it helps you literally see the performance of any process, whether that's bug reports per week, server uptime, you name it. So here's how a control chart works. You've got that central line right in the middle, that's your average. And then you have an upper and a lower control limit, which basically define the range of what's considered normal, random variation. As long as your little data points are bouncing around between those lines, your process is considered stable or in control. But here's where it gets really clever. Sometimes a process can be going off the rails even if no single data point crosses those control limits. And that's where the 7-run rule comes in. If you see 7 points in a row that are all above the average or all below it, or maybe they're all just steadily going up or down, that's not random anymore. That's a huge red flag telling you that something has changed in your process, and you need to go figure out what it is. Okay, so your charts are working. You've identified some problems. But on any complex project, you're probably not going to have 1 or 2 problems. You're going to have dozens, maybe hundreds. User complaints, bugs, performance issues. You can't fix everything at once. So the really critical question is, where do you focus your team's energy to get the biggest bang for your buck? And for that, we have another amazing tool called Pareto analysis. It's all based on the 80-20 rule, this idea that usually 80% of your problems come from just 20% of the causes. Now, just take a look at this table of user complaints. You can see this principle playing out right before your eyes. And boom, there it is. This is the power of Pareto. Just 2 issues, those login problems and the system locking up, they account for a whopping 78% of all the user complaints. So instead of the team running around trying to fix a dozen little things, a smart project manager knows to focus them right here. Fix these two things and you've made the biggest possible improvement to quality and user happiness. Which brings us to a really critical topic: money. Because look, quality isn't free, but I can promise you, poor quality is way, way more expensive. Understanding the cost of quality is absolutely essential if you want to make smart business decisions. You can basically think about the cost of quality as having two sides of the same coin. First, you've got the cost of conformance. That's the proactive money. It's the cash you invest upfront to get things right the first time. Things like good training, solid planning, and thorough testing. And then, you've got the cost of non-conformance. That's the reactive cost. That's the money you are forced to spend when things go wrong. It's the pay now or pay a lot more later principle. So, a big piece of that proactive cost is the appraisal cost. This is basically the price you pay to check your own work as you go. Think about hiring inspectors, running all of those product tests, or just the time your team spends doing code reviews. It's the investment you make to catch mistakes before they can ever escape and get to your customer. But on the reactive side, you've got the most dangerous, most expensive cost of all, the external failure cost. This is the nightmare scenario. This is the price you pay when a defect makes it all the way out the door to your customer. And we're not just talking about the cost of a support call. We're talking product recalls, warranty claims, lost sales, and the absolute worst of all, a massive hit to your brand's reputation that can take years to fix. Okay, we've talked about processes, tools, costs, but what if I told you that the single biggest factor in project quality isn't technical at all? Turns out it's all about the people. This quote comes from a legendary study in the world of software development, and it was absolutely groundbreaking. Researchers looked at hundreds of developers at dozens of companies, and what they found shocked everybody. The biggest things that drove productivity and quality, it wasn't the programming language they used, it wasn't the tools, it wasn't even how many years of experience they had. It was sociological. It was about their environment. So what really mattered the most? Well, it was things like having a quiet, private workspace where people could actually focus. It was an environment with as little office politics as possible. And maybe most important of all, it was having managers whose job wasn't to make people work, but to make it possible for them to do great work by getting roadblocks out of their way and giving them real ownership. And that really leaves us with one final thought to take away from all this. You can have all the best tools, all the control charts, and the best processes in the world. But if your work environment doesn't empower people to do their absolute best work, you are always, always going to be fighting an uphill battle for quality. So the real question is this: is your workplace designed for quality, or is it just designed for getting things done? Thanks for tuning in.